Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber or a continuous watcher, you guys already know how much I appreciate you being here. If you are new here and have never seen this face before, I hope that you decide to hit that red subscribe button and stick around. This is going to be the last video that I do about Kiely Rodni until we get something about the toxicology, the vehicle, and the autopsy straight from law enforcement. I understand that there's a lot of crazy rumors and really ridiculous conspiracy theories and a lot of really crazy people spreading a bunch of really crazy things about this case. There's actually a very small part of the true crime community that really are just here to find out the truth. It seems like most of them are just out there to spread whatever gossip someone sends them in an email and just take it for whatever clicks they can get without really paying attention to the damage that it can inherently do to the case. Several pretty big crime channels that I've seen do nothing but pull DMs from unknown people from social media and do no actual research on what they're about to be spreading. There's people out there doxing children. What the hell is wrong with you people? The only comments I'm going to make about SF Investigates, besides the fact that he gives me a very jealous vibe when he speaks about this case, and especially AWP, is that he is not even licensed in California. He is not retained by the Rodni Neiman family. All eyes on the case are, of course, welcome. But to then involve yourself in a case that you were not actually supposed to be involved in, or going around to YouTube channels to do a bunch of interviews like what you have to say actually matters more than what AWP does, is a little bit concerning to me. I will also say this though. SF took a bunch of drone footage from the entire area. And I know that I have mentioned this before. There was a live that Grizzly True Crime was doing. In this drone footage of his that we were all reviewing, a bunch of us in the chat started freaking out because we saw something in the water. And after she was found and all the footage went back through again, it turns out that it was her vehicle that we saw. SF's drones actually did fly over the spot where she was, and we did all see it. And the only reason that matters is because, according to him in an interview he did a few days ago, that footage with the locations were given to law enforcement almost an entire week before Adventures with Purpose showed up. So you mean to tell me they had literal proof that would have been enough for them to send a dive team out a week before a civilian dive team showed up, and they still directed them to go elsewhere first? I'm sorry, what? Another thing that SF mentions is that it was a Detective Sonier who was the contact for AWP with law enforcement. So I'm just going to blame him for giving AWP such a long-distant, non-blood-related relative in order for them to contact. Now, for anyone who's not a member of their channel, y'all did not have the privilege of actually watching these conversations happen. Now, the Lori, like we've already talked about, was not blood-related to Kiely and was the stepfather's great aunt. I don't understand why someone so long-distance would even have been a point of contact with law enforcement, period. Okay? And from the timeline that we do know, it was 35 minutes from them getting into the water and actually seeing her on sonar. We know further details from Nick and Doug doing interviews a few days ago that it was almost another 2 hours after that before they actually got in the water and confirmed that it was her vehicle. Now, as soon as Nick came out the water, we heard Doug say they contact family first, okay? So the very first 1 minute that Nick was out the water, Doug was on the phone to Lori, the point of contact given to them by law enforcement. It was most likely, from what we're comprehending here, almost another 2 hours before it was posted on social media. Now, the stories go that mom was told by the waitress at the restaurant that she was at about it, from the waitress seeing it on social media. And the way SF says it is that almost 30 minutes after it was posted, a contact of his from Tennessee actually called him on the phone to tell them what they saw. And he just so happened to be with Dad and Grandpa. So it would have been almost half an hour after it was posted on social media before Dad and Grandpa found out. And they got there within like 2 minutes of being informed. The family was basically like living in a trailer in the front of the campground. And it had a huge number on the side of the trailer in which, to be honest, Checkit TV should have been able to see and call that number in order to give the right people the evidence that he found. And he's acting like he couldn't get a hold of anyone. Now, I don't know exactly how I feel about Mr. Checkit, but I know that there's some things about his story that kind of rubbed me a little wrong. The main one being that while he was there was a friend of Kiely's on the shoreline. Now, of course, he's been asked several times who this person possibly was, and he will not answer. And according to him, when he pulled Kiely's hairbrush out of the water and held it up, there was definite recognition on this friend's face. Now, not only does that itself, the fact that this so-called friend just so happened to be right there as he is searching, and that sounds strange enough as it is, he then claims that this friend said that she was going to call the detective whose phone number she had in her phone. And instead of calling him right there in front of Checkit, she walked away to make the phone call and then came back and told him that law enforcement was not coming. And he just took that at face value? What? And a lot of people are grateful that he went down there and found Kiely's stuff. I know there's parts of Kiely's family that are most likely very grateful for it. But just like with him finding all of those things and it going to the family first before it going to law enforcement, the chain of command is now completely broken. If little Miss Sammy truly does have a criminal defense attorney, number one, she's not acting like it by going to Donner Beach and drinking right there, underage and on federal property. For having lawyer parents, this girl is not very smart. But this evidence can easily get dismissed in court now that it did transfer through several hands and was not properly collected. Go figure. How convenient for the case, isn't it? I would also really like to know who this other independent dive team was, because SF said that this was not a law enforcement related dive team that ended up going in and apparently finding even more of Kiely's things after Checkit had found so much. But we haven't heard from these people. We haven't heard what was found, and we haven't heard any word that law enforcement has gone and collected anything from this other group of divers. And they had scuba tanks, and they searched a wider area. Okay, but what did you guys find? I can only hope that whatever they did find was hopefully collected the right way, but like I said, we haven't heard crap about law enforcement going out there, so I'm just going to assume that it wasn't. There's a lot of players in this situation and way too many pieces for me to want to continue to try to keep up with. Now, I am not just going to not ever discuss this case again. I will post things in the community tab, but as for making videos, what else is there that we could possibly discuss, guys? There is nothing but red flags and suspicion written on pretty much every face of everyone involved in this scenario. And the more that we try to learn, the less sense this entire thing makes. And I'm really kind of tired of feeling so nauseous from all of the dizziness I keep getting from it. I am fully expecting for law enforcement to come out and say that this was a tragic accident And Mom's silence tells me that something else is going on in this community, because your community does not have your back, sweetheart. They've done the opposite of that. And while I do feel the pain of a grieving mother, I almost lost my daughter. And I know that I behaved a hell of a lot differently than I have seen her behave over the past few weeks. And I hadn't even lost her. And I was a disaster. It just got really, really close. We see this mother who's actually lost her child, and there's no actual emotion on her. Everything seems like it's just for the camera, and she's literally been nowhere. You don't even thank the people that found her. You are ungrateful, ma'am. I also know that that town does a piss-poor job of raising its children, because from what it seems, these drug-induced loud parties are quite common, and the parents just don't really seem to care about the dangers that their children are putting themselves in, because it's been allowed to be a thing for what is said to be decades now. None of this and none of the behaviors from this town, whether it be parents telling their children to stay quiet or the children's behavior themselves, is acceptable. And I do hope that some of you go ahead and go over to Project Veritas's page, pay the most attention to the episode that they did about this place and their law enforcement. None of this will be a shock to you if you actually knew what happened in this town. I believe full-heartedly that several people are very aware and witnessed with their own eyes whatever happened to Kiely that night, no matter where it ended up happening. And I know for a fact that all of these teenagers that Kiely's mother keeps hugging onto and trying to protect sure did not have that exact same protection on their mind when it came to making sure that their drunk and intoxicated daughter did not end up in the bottom of a lake. Little Sammy is all over social media, still underage drinking, where anyone at any college can see her doing so. So for that to be the excuse that a lot of people are letting these parents get away with, be the reason why it's okay that all these kids kept quiet, shame on every single one of you. There are people in this community very much being protected, regardless of what anyone else wants to sit here and try to believe. And I'm pretty sure whoever they are helped Kiely's mother write that horribly given speech that she gave at her daughter's life celebration party a few days ago. Nothing about that was heartfelt. The ridiculous show that she put on told us all everything. And the honor is not in our silence, ma'am. The honor is in making sure that your daughter gets the justice that she deserves. And the fact that you're just sitting there acting like we are the ones doing wrong really makes me wonder about the relationship that was had before this big tragedy. It may not be anytime soon, but years from now, someone is going to crack. Years from now, the truth is going to come out, because it always does. Life lesson number 1, kiddos. It always does. Everything about this case has completely disgusted me. It's just a shame that this is becoming so normal for these cases to become such a circus. The next 2 videos I'm going to be releasing here are the stories of 2 children that were killed in my hometown of Kerrville, Texas. These stories are riddled with injustice and need the community's attention. The suspects, the perpetrators, are very well known and very much getting away with what they have done. And I'm just beyond sick of it. It's time we talk more about the corruption than anything else. So until then, see y'all.